As you may know, in northern Norway it's almost always dark in the winter and always bright in the summer. But how does flying look like there? You will find out in this video. So this Christmas holiday we decided to leave dark, rainy and cold Hamburg and fly to northern Norway. Actually to see some winter and the aurora borealis, so the northern lights. Well, actually we haven't been that successful in seeing the northern lights because the weather was too bad almost the entire time, but at least for a short period of time we could actually see them. We have a problem here. We are having an apartment in Stakkerfolvegen 303 and we locked ourselves out. We just called or contacted your colleague. Yeah, better don't do that. So, where did I stop? Alright, what we've been really happy about is that we've got the opportunity to talk to a local pilot from the Tromsø Flyklub about general aviation there. So we set up a meeting at the airport. There was actually a small hope that we could take even a short flight around the area with him, but when the day came, it welcomed us with gusts around 80 km per hour and showers of snow and hail bursting sideways through the streets, so not the ideal conditions for a VFR flight, as you may know. Our contact Lars met us by the entrance and we walked to the clubhouse together. This was really a cool place as you could watch through the window and observe the airport operations from there, and they really had a lot to do on this day by cleaning the snow constantly, de-icing planes, etc. Some planes even had to wait on the taxiway due to the strong crosswinds when showers were passing by. And when taxiing onto the runway, they performed this so-called ice shedding maneuver or procedure. So they spool up the engines to 70% of power for around 30 seconds before applying full takeoff thrust. So we didn't see that before. The atmosphere with Lars was really great immediately and we started to chat about flying, having some coffee and cookies, and yeah, of course we also asked your questions to him, which you sent us before.
Hello guys, today we are in Tromsø with Lars, who's introducing us into flying general aviation in Norway. Yeah, sneaks and peeks of flying here in the mountains and with the polar night and polar day and everything. So yeah, this will be very interesting conversation, I think. Who are you? How did you get into flying? And yeah, were you born in Tromsø or? So just tell us like few words.
So I'm Lars, 33 years old from Bergen, at the west coast of Norway. Started flying gliders when I was 15 years old. Got really into it, enjoyed it, and flew active for around 5-6 years. Tried some competition in the start, and then I joined the military. And then I did a career in the military for many years. Been there for 14 years. I had to move to different positions in Norway, and one journey to the Middle East. Always trying to fly at the different spots.
Yeah, great.
So I've joined a lot of different clubs. Of course, the glider clubs and the community in the start. Then I started with the PPL. Started in Bergen in 2017. And then I had to move because of my duty up here in the north.
Yeah.
So then I moved here to Tromsø. And then I finished my PPL here in Tromsø. And then I got knowledge and experience with winter flying and winter operations. So that was a whole new ball game. Flying on icy, contaminated runways, crosswind, and the polar night, as you told. The temperatures, I remember that time when we were finishing the PPL, we had to do a lot of clothing. We flew a small sport cruiser, and the cabin heater was just like a mental support. It was like you were believing it would maintain some kind of heating, but it was like almost nothing.
Oh no.
So up here we had like sub 20, 30 degrees of Celsius, and up in the air it was freezing.
Oh.
So I think we usually flew at around 1 hour, and then we were like had like blue nails almost.
Oh my God.
Sometimes. So you get used to have proper clothing, and also be prepared for the worst, like an engine failure or ditching up here could be quite critical. So having the proper clothing on you with gloves, mittens, and also surviving gear, for example, a knife, something to provide fires, like a torch or something like that, and maps from all the areas you're going to fly. Especially up here in the north, you take off and depart from an congested area like Tromsø.
Yep.
But after 5 minutes, it's like wildlife up in the mountainous areas.
Yeah, right.
It's what we usually say is 1 minute of flying out in nowhere is around 1 hour of hiking at the same direction to get back. So if you do like an landing offset and an airfield, you will probably have a long hike back home.
Oh, yeah.
So usually when you're planning up here, we got used to use landmarks, roads, and try to find those villages to put your VFR route close to.
Yes.
That could save you in a tough situation.
Right.
Yeah.
But actually, there are not so many spots where you can land, right? There are many mountains. There's very much water, but not so many fields which are even nice to land on, I guess.
Exactly. So with my gliding experience, I had like a mental state of my engine is going to quit one day. Where can I land? So I actually joined the gliding club up here in North. I think it's one of the most northern situated gliding clubs in Salangen. So it's around 30-40 minutes south of here, flying time. So I have a 800 meter grass field. I joined one group there where we looked into off-field landings, like emergency spots up here in the north. Where are we able to do like an off-field landing with gliders? So I have kind of that same mindset when flying GA traffic. And also some years ago I started with some bush flying. Did the tail wheel endorsement, flying with a guy from the Air Force, and we did some fantastic bush flying. And then I got the knowledge about the Norwegian Texas, the northern part called Finnmark, where it's a huge amount of marshlands and mountains. And a lot of spots you can go landing with a bush aircraft.
Yeah, great.
So we made like an AIP from that area. So it was a local guy, ATPL pilot, who made an IEP for the whole area. Which areas you can go for a bush landing.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Like strips from 200 meters to 500 meters and everything between.
That's cool.
Gravel, grass, most of it.
Amazing.
And which phone numbers you have to call and coordinate to check the soil and check the surface. You can go up there, bring your fishing gear and a tent and hiking gear, and you just land these magnificent spots. They're quite nice to have on your map when you're flying your different GA aircraft on cruise. Then you know that you all have like glide distance to these
It's
small
something
fields.
that you have a backup.
Yeah.
If something happens here, right?
Yeah.
That's quite good.
Great.
So something what we experience here now, we were always every day, of course, checking the weather to see if it's possible to see the northern lights in the evening. But we kind of struggled because our radar was absolutely inaccurate. It was not showing what actually happened outside. We had problems finding a good satellite picture, basically any reliable weather information. So
Yes.
how is it with weather here?
Weather planning.
How do you prepare for weather, and what kind of data you use?
And maybe which tools are you using
Yeah.
if someone is planning a trip here?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So what I use, I start with the national service, the IPPC, Internet Pilot Planning Center. And then I get first the SIGMET, the significant weather chart for the whole area.
Yeah.
And I see, is there anything here that might be dangerous for my flight or for the next upcoming days? And then I look into the national service of, for example, the high pressure charts, and then the winds. And then I find, okay, this area might work this will be workable weather, flyingable weather for the next 24 hours. And then I look into the METAR and the TOFs for each airport.
Yep.
And then I usually always have a lot of backups up there. The weather might change very quickly, like that. So you always need to plan, like an airline and pilot, you need like an alternate, and you need like contingency fuel, and final reserves. So many times you need like 1 or 2 alternate airports, especially in the autumn and early springtime, when most people go flying after a long winter, or late in the autumn, the weather might change like that.
Yeah.
In Norway, worth mentionable is that due to the coastline, it's a lot of moisture, and it's a lot of maritime weather mass approaching from the southwest.
Yep.
So sometimes in the autumn and early spring, you can get surprised by the advection fog, or like coastal fog creeping in.
Yeah.
So especially if you go flying in Norway in the autumn and you arrive late in the evening back to the airfield, you can see that the fog is creeping in.
What I've seen on satellite pictures is that especially here, these regions, these mountains directly at the coast are very often obscured in clouds.
Like constantly.
And the mainland behind is free of clouds.
Exactly.
So probably also the mountains are, all this humid air is pressed against the mountain, forcing clouds to build up, I guess, probably
Yes.
also. This is how I would explain it to myself.
Yeah.
That's
But
a good explanation.
so I can really imagine that when you fly around the next mountain, that suddenly you have completely different weather.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my tip is, when flying in Norway, I usually plan 2 different routes. I plan one route along the whole coast of Norway, which is like significant. It's like the whole country is one long coastline. And then I plan one route in the inner parts of the land, like along the border, Norway-Sweden border, or in the mountainous area. Because you will usually have 2 different weather types, one at the coast and one in the mountains. Most of the airports in Norway are situated along the coast, so you will have quite detailed weather forecasts for those airfields. In the mountains, it might be a bit more challenging to get the correct information.
Okay.
But sometimes you will have, as you say, a lot of moisture along the coast, advection fog, etc., which will make the airfields IMC, and then you will have clear skies in the mountains. So what you should do is to check all the airfields along the coast, and then find those few airports in the midland, like up in the mountains and along the Norway-Sweden border. So that might work that day.
Okay.
Sometimes you are also allowed to fly into Sweden, of course, following the AIPs and the regulations of the country. But that might also help you on the long en route. Norway is quite narrow at the northern parts,
Yeah.
so it's a short trip within Sweden. Yeah.
All right.
So also flying in the mountains, I try to use a lot of satellite images, and I also call the phone service for the meteorological services at the airfield, and I ask them, do you know the weather system, the prevailing system along the border and in Sweden? What could affect my route during the next 12 hours?
Yeah.
So every time I've been unsure of the weather conditions, especially in the autumn and the springtime, when the winter is still there but not there, and it's a lot of challenging weather.
It's a critical time, right?
Yes. Then I usually call the Met service to just do some discussion and have their thoughts on it. I learned a lot from the Met services as well when I've been discussing with them. When they're using their METAR and the TOFs, it's like a lot of mathematics and models. But when they usually push out their prob, for example, prob 30, prob 40 of a weather phenomenon or something special weather, it's very often local and historical knowledge from that airfield.
Oh, okay.
So I have like a database that when we have this temperature, this wind, this moisture density, in this situation, this time of year, 80% of the time, this weather will impact.
Oh, okay.
Then they will state this will be a prob 40 on the METAR or the TOF.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's quite helpful, and also to ask them what's the assessment behind the prob 30 or prob 40 assessment.
I never questioned what they made.
What?
Why there's 30 and 40 and
Yeah,
what
what does it mean?
Yeah, exactly. So
That's interesting.
yeah.
And then to visualize this and to get even more details, I use Windy,
Yeah.
and I guess also you guys.
Yeah.
And then I use in Norway a specific service called HEMS VX. It's the National Search and Rescue Service weather application.
Okay.
So it's a quite good model. They use it mostly for the ambulance helicopters. It started there, but it has developed and become like a common product for many GA clubs in Norway.
Okay.
So you're able to download and register for a user account, and you will get a lot of detailed information. You will have all the METAR and TOFs, but also the weather along the route. You will have a 3D graphical forecast, which I use a lot. That's quite good.
Wow. Okay.
If I'm going to fly, for example, VFR on top, I can use that model to see how does the segment of air from ground to 10,000 feet look like.
Oh,
Okay,
great.
so you can see how much moisture there is, and the model will stipulate you will have a cloud layer in this altitude and this altitude, top of clouds at this altitude, you have the freezing level at this level,
Nice.
and you will always have control of the isothermal. And that's quite good if you're flying in the mountains,
Yeah.
and especially VFR on top. That's very good information. And also, it has a web camera service.
Okay.
So
That's good. Yeah,
All
that sounds
built in, great.
Yeah.
exactly right. And I use it a lot in the winter time. If I'm not flying for a period, I use the app. For example, today I checked the METAR and the TOFs. It looked like, okay, what does all of these numbers mean? Then I checked the web camera for that position, and I'm like, okay, this is what it means.
Yeah.
This is how this looks like.
The webcams give you a real picture of the situation. Yeah?
Exactly right.
It's what also we used last year when we flew into the Alps in Austria. We had also indications of some cumulus clouds building up, but we wanted to check, okay, how does it actually look like? How high are they in real? How do the valleys look like? Is there somewhere, closed in the valleys?
Exactly right.
And then we looked along our route for webcams on Windy, for example.
Perfect.
And it gave us a very good picture of the situation.
Yeah, there we go. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if it hasn't been a web camera in that area, I've just asked a friend who lives there, can you take a picture up in the air in this direction, and how does it look?
Yeah.
And if I'm going to an airfield where I know there is a pilot or a club, I just ask them. There are some off-field landings in Norway, like bush places where you don't have any weather information.
Okay. Yeah.
And then most of the times I call a friend to get some information, and then I have to do like 1 or 2 flybys in the area to check the conditions. I do like a low approach to check the wind conditions in a low altitude in a landing configuration with some extra speed, and just to be sure. So weather might be a bit challenging in Norway, but in the summertime, when most GA pilots go there, it's mostly very nice.
Yeah, so one thing that you've also mentioned were the challenging winds in mountains. So it's basically probably the same in Germany or in Austria, and also so in Norway. Like that you have the rotors when you're flying in mountains. So do you have like very few tips, like 2-3 tips of checking on the winds, or do you have the special trainings for the mountain flying, or what are your experiences in this one?
Yeah. My experience with mountain flying is mostly from the gliding community, but also with the PPL, the training, and the when I did the tailwheel endorsement. So in Norway, up here in the north, when it's prevailing easterlies, like eastern winds, you will have some rotors across the mountains along the Norwegian-Sweden border. Most of those rotors, they will be they will be issued in the SIGMET. So in the SIGMET forecast, it will be stated at what kind of altitudes, etc. Usually in Norway, if you have a wind above 20 knots up in the mountains, within a 45 degree at the adjacent to the slope of the mountain, you will most of the times have some waves up in the air. You need a stable air layer in between, and then unstable at the lower portion. So if those conditions are met, you will probably have some rotors. What does that mean in practical? Well, in Norway, most of the times, early springtime, especially around Easter, and sometimes in the autumn, October especially, with eastern winds, you will have some rotors and wave activity in Norway. Not that much along the coast. You'll probably be safe along the coastline at the lower altitude, but if you cross 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 feet in the mountains, eastern part of Norway, in the north, that time of year, you might hit those rotors if you're at the wrong side of the valley or of the wave. So if you hit a spot with a lot of turbulence or a rotor, you can just try a 180-degree turn. You have to reduce the speed a bit. It could be quite turbulent, so you should try to reduce to VA, to maneuvering speed, depending on the gross weight, and then try to get out. And if you have to cross a mountain or a slope because of your route, try to cross at a 45-degree angle, and always have an escape plan. So flying in a mountain, you are passing 700 feet above a precip or a cliff, 700 feet of downdraft, high density, heavy aircraft, not too powerful engine. It's not always that you're able to climb out. That descent rate might be at 1,000 feet a minute. So.
You should already approach the peaks in quite amount of altitude above. Right?
Yeah, and exactly, a lot of energy, and then plan for escape route. So like a 90-degree sharp turn down to the left or to the right to get out. So I have experienced like really strong downdrafts, pulling the aircraft several thousand feet down. I had 2 trips in my career in that kind of extremesis, and it's not a pleasant journey at all.
Another question that we always had in our minds, but also our viewers, was, of course, we know that you have the polar night and you have the polar day. And when you have the polar day, is it then possible to like fly basically 24/7, or are there some regulations, some local regulations, or how does it work here? Because it's like really extraordinary.
For the state airports, Norway, you have to check the operational hours at the IPPC. So some airports have 24 hours of opening, like Tromsø. Some airports are closing in the evenings. Worth mentionable is how will you get out from the airport? Most of the airports has a security fence with a gate. So you can probably land there. Many airports also have an agreement stated in their AIPs that, okay, we're closing at 1900, but after that it will become a radio mandatory zone, transmitting on your radios blind, park the aircraft, but then you're stuck. Won't get out from there. Then you need to contact the airport or the club. I would suggest to search on that area, and then a flying club. See if there are any locals, and they will give you the best tip. Some airports has an agreement that you're able to use the airport 24 hours, but then you need to conduct a test on the internet, and then you will have like a small license. So the biggest airports of Norway, like Tromsø, 24 hours of opening. For use of minor airfields and like soft fields, they don't have a fence most of the times. You're able to land 24 hours a day. But many of those airfields also have some local regulations. So it actually depends on
Like
each
for
airfield.
example, noise reduction.
Exactly, many airfields in Norway, which are not owned by the state, has an own agreement called PPR, which you need like a prior permission.
We know it as well.
We have it as well.
We have any airfields which are PPR in Germany. So.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And they will have like a very short AIP stating like you're not able to land after 2100
Okay.
because of neighbors and noise abatement, right?
Okay.
But some places you're able to use the airfield 24 hours a day, especially if it's like really offset out in nowhere. So the answer is it depends on each airfield.
But basically, you can have quite much fun in the summer here.
Exactly. I've been flying like at the middle of nighttime. It was horrible weather the whole day. And then in the evening, it got clear skies and severe cavalcade, right?
Yeah.
And you just take off and you can cruise down the coast, and it's really beautiful in the nighttime. It's very calm winds. The air is fantastic, right? A bit colder, better density for the engine, and you can see the sunset and then the sunrise again, just like 1 hour between, and it's crazy, especially in the middle of July.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So great.
But now in the winter it's opposite, right? So now we have like 2-3 hours where it's a
2-3
little bit
hours.
bright,
Yeah. Exactly.
and then you're basically night
Then it's
VFR
nighttime.
again, right?
Then you need your night rating.
Yeah.
Especially up here in the north, it's almost like mandatory if you want to stay proficient the whole year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
But I can imagine that it's also a bit tricky when I look outside, and especially at the coast to fly in the night.
Yeah.
It means
Yeah.
you don't see the clouds basically, right? How is it? I mean,
That night rating is a bit. It can be some scary moments because the night rating gives you a lot of freedom and you have like a lot of responsibility flying in the nighttime.
Sure.
But what most people doesn't assess is how is the moonlight, how is the forecast, what is the space weather, how much snow is it on the ground. Will I actually see these contrasts, etc.? Because night rating, right?
Yeah,
it's VFR.
Yeah, it's
But sometimes you won't see those mountains. You won't see that cliff pointing up. You're learning these different black hole effects during your night rating. But many times up here in north in Norway, and especially in the late autumn, it's really dark.
Yeah, I believe.
October, it's like completely dark on the ground. It's not that many lights. Flying outside villages, main roads, etc. It's not a single light.
Yeah.
So flying night rating in Norway could be a bit dangerous. Then you would probably need some kind of IFR knowledge to gain more proficient, to have some backups, and to also plan like an IFR flight, like 2,000 feet above mountainous areas within 8 nautical miles, track, blah blah blah. And also plan very smart. I look at the IFR charts and the arrival procedures and say, okay, out that fjord, and then over these large areas with significant lighting systems and roads, villages. So probably flying nighttime up here can be dangerous. You will probably need a good, a white ground. So you will need a lot of snow.
Yeah.
And you will need sometimes moonlight to get some kind of visual references.
Sure.
Or sometimes I've been flying and then suddenly the snow had melted in that area, different climate in that region, and those great references with moonlight and snowy white ground, and you can see tracks in the snow, right? And then suddenly everything is black, completely black, and you have dimmed all the lights as you should do, but you will really struggle to see the references. That's a bit like a scary feeling. Then you're starting to look into, okay, how is the IFR procedures in this area? How high do I need to be in this area? Then you have the temperature effects. Norway, the temperature could be very cold, could drop to like sub 30, sub 40 degrees, especially up in the air in this part of region. And then that cold air, that will impact your true altitude, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
So you will actually be much lower.
Yeah.
And then also flying in the mountains, if it's a lot of wind, that dynamic pressure
Yeah.
will also decrease your true altitude as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are some challenges you need to be aware of.
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah.
How's it with Northern Lights? We are here in the area which is known for aurora, for the bright Northern Lights. And is there any influence of the Northern Lights to the plane, the instruments, something like this?
Yeah. So usually when the northern lights are quite severe, usually it will impact the ionosphere. So mostly the HF propagation will be severely impacted, especially for a lot of airliners crossing the oceans and utilizing the HF for the radio comms. Will have a severe impact. Sometimes it might affect the VHF. I personally have no experience with my VHF being impacted, but it's in theory possible that that layer also might be affected sometimes. So the stronger the northern light is, right, the more activity, solar activity in the ionosphere. That's why we had the space weather as well.
Yeah.
Looking into all the stuff that could affect the radio communications and radio navigation. I haven't heard about differences and discrepancies on your other flight instruments besides that, because that solar activity is very often being forecasted. So you can plan with like from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the night. That's the severe impact of these layers in the ionosphere. But what's actually impacting up here in the north is not only the northern light, but due to the tall mountains. Many of the mountains here will reach as high as 5,000 feet, 6,000 feet, 7,000 feet. Your radio navigation and your radio reception could be quite poor. So if I'm going to fly into a different airport, I need to climb quite high, usually 5, 6, 7,000 feet, to actually have the line of sight with my radios to just get the 80s for that airport, for that range. And sometimes also flying in the Lyngen Alps, just east of Tromsø. You actually have to start to plan radio navigation and radio propagation. Like east of Tromsø, it's not that many airfields anymore. It's like one airfield northeast, but if you go straight east of Tromsø, it's only mountains, and they get higher and higher. So if you go east of Tromsø and then low of that mountain chain, sometimes you won't have any radio reception. You won't have line of sight back to the airfield. And you can be pretty close to Tromsø and have no radio comms.
Okay.
Just at the border of the CTR of the airfield. So you need to think about that line of sight with your radios flying in these areas of Norway and stay high. Some airports, like Bardufoss, Tromsø, they have different radio antennas, not just at the airports, but on the top of the mountains around the airfield. That could help a lot.
Right.
But as a GA pilot, you won't always have that information. But you should always try to call, of course, and just transmit blind if you won't get anything. But I've been in a lot of situations in Norway, flying in the mountains, where another aircraft is trying to reach for ATC for help or assistance or information, but I won't get any reply. And then if I know that I'm higher, I'll just talk to them and I will rely that information. That could work.
Right. This is also what we've experienced in Alps. I think
right.
already.
We tried to reach Vienna information.
But there was nothing.
There was no one because we were below the peaks and there was absolutely no coverage there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's exactly the same situation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The same if pilots go flying IFR in Norway. There's a lot of challenges here in the mountains with scalloping and bends and reflections in the mountains.
Yeah, right.
Radio signals, right? So that's also a challenge. So it's very important for those to do correct tracking and actually hit the interception points correctly. Yeah. So that's different challenges with Norway, but the most beautiful thing you can do is probably taking off in the evening in a clear day, usually when it's sub-0 degrees, so around like 10 or 15 degrees of Celsius sub. Yeah, it's a bit cold, but it's very clear, nice air. The worst icing conditions is probably around 0 degrees down to 5 degrees sub-Celsius.
Yeah.
But when you reach around minus 10, minus 15, it's more clear air. You won't have that most dangerous icing conditions. And the air is much more drier. So you will have clear views, you will see the moon, you will see the sea, bathing in the moonlight, and then you will have the aurora borealis, the northern lights.
Oh, no, wow.
So some pilots here in Tromsø who fly the different airliners and the national companies, they're like following the northern lights to their next airport at Hammerfest further north. Have like a nice track north-south. So it's beautiful. And it's different colors, meaning different altitudes of the solar storm. So many pilots, they have an app where they can, as you guys did, analyze the forecast of the aurora borealis.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It's really so good.
The structure in Norway is quite easy actually. It's uncontrolled from the ground to a certain altitude. In the north of Norway it's a bit higher, and in the south of Norway a bit lower usually. And then you will have all the TMAs, which would most of the times be Charlie airspace.
Okay, so here in this case it would be Charlie since 3,500 or above 3,000. Okay, all right.
And then for the CTRs, it most of the times will be a Delta airspace. In Norway they actually don't have any Echo airspaces.
All right, yeah. So, but for airspace Charlie, it's usually not a problem to get permission? Or?
No.
Okay.
Many of those stipulated airspaces are what we call TI set. Yeah. So there will be like an officer in the tower at Sola providing information.
It's like us.
Yeah, and also helping out with activating the flight plan. Okay. He will call the next authority. He will call the control airspace, in that case Bodø, and get the clearance and the squawk code, and they will provide it to you. Okay,
so they do a bit more than by us. We don't actually, around airfields, we don't have a designated area, but it's in a change now, but usually we must have someone on the tower in Germany who is observing the traffic, but he's only allowed to give information. But it's now changing that some airports already can be operated without someone being there.
Okay.
But it's a slow change. But actually here you have quite much service then.
Yeah, they will provide, actually, they will give you some weather information, they will give you some traffic information in the area, traffic inbound, outbound. They will provide you the flight plan, the clearance, but he will call the authority for that, and he will relay that information to you.
Yeah, okay, this is also...
And give the squawk code as well.
Okay. By us, they can open your flight or activate the flight plan as well.
Yes, they can.
But they have they are not allowed to do anything further, like giving exact wind information.
They are not able to give like a departure clearance.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you can say that you can state your intentions, and he will just state that this is the weather, this is the traffic I know about.
Yeah, exactly.
And the runway is not active, and then it's up to you.
It's on discretion, right? It's just it's basically uncontrolled airfield.
Exactly.
Just with someone who can give you some information about the what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a good security.
Are there any unwritten rules or procedures you have here in flying? What are not official, but you always do it like that?
Yeah,
like a local rules.
Like a local rule. Yeah. It's a gentleman's sport flying in Norway. In Norway, we are very into safety. So by that we mean using the radios, always transmitting blind if you don't get any calls, and using the ATCs. I know that, but down in Europe it's very like congested airspaces and a lot of IFR traffic. Probably not that easy to get in touch with ATC all the time and get that priority and information. You will probably be just noise on a skipple approach, I guess. But in Norway, it's a bit different. They're very friendly, and the ATC will give you a lot of information of high value.
Okay.
So
Nice.
I always try to use ATC as much as I can, and every time flying in controlled airspace, always talk with the next ATC above me. They give me so much information and tips, and they are very friendly, and sometimes they're a bit lonely. And some airfields, and they just wanna chat.
Oh.
So it's very cozy actually,
Yeah.
especially on the smaller airfields
Yeah.
in Norway.
And
Yeah.
also flight plans, or
Yes.
you meant that it's also better from the security perspective.
Exactly right. Using the airfields, especially not the biggest airports with 2,500 meter runway, but smaller airports with 800 meter runway in Norway. That's what we call the big, the smaller network of airports, usually utilized by one company called Widerøe. Those airfields usually have uncontrolled airspace, but they have a traffic information zone at the airfield with an officer in the tower, which will provide you all the information and the weather information, and also help you with your flight plan and the clearances from the next airspace or the next authority. Those airfields have a lot of friendly people.
Okay.
They have good coffee in the tower. They will probably invite you or ask you where you're going and give you some tips. And the fire station there will help you out. Also very friendly. And as long as you're humble and friendly in Norway, you will meet a lot of great people at those airports.
But also what you mentioned before is that if you need any guidance or help, there are many clubs here who can
Exactly.
you
Right.
can contact to get fuel, for example, or who can help you find the right contacts.
Exactly. My tip: search for that area you're going to, and then put just flying club behind it. See what pops up at Google, and just contact one of the leaders of that club. They will just point you out a person and call
Right,
them.
basically as we did here, right? So
Exactly.
this is how this meeting was made possible. So we just contacted the club, and it was really easy to get into contact with you and to get this meeting. This was really great experience.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
good.
friendly. We even got a cup with merch from this club, so it's really friendly here.
Yeah, I really have to say it. Yeah, it's really great.
Yeah.
That's good there.
One question, what is not so related to how flying is, but one viewer asked, how is it with seaplanes? You have many fjords here, very much water.
Yeah.
Are there also many clubs or I don't know companies who are
do
flying
that.
seaplanes
Yeah.
here?
So, personally, I do not have any experience with seaplanes, but I have some friends who do. They have up in the north, further north of Tromsø, at that Finnmarks plateau, that Texas area I talked about. They have some seaplanes because it's a lot of lakes. It's almost like Finland. So huge.
Yeah.
Not many people, but a lot of fishing lakes and cabins and some tourists and hunters. So they fly a lot of hunters around to those lakes and fishermen. And then you have to go further south. I know down in Lofoten Islands they have some seaplanes, and then further south in Norway.
Okay.
But there are some challenges with that, as many pilots know, all the sea state and the swells.
Yeah, sure.
You need like nice, calm conditions.
Yeah.
Not that many people landing out in the ocean here along the
Yeah.
coast, but at the big lakes and in the southern part of
Okay.
Norway, it's usually a bit more calm sea state down there. Here we are close to the Barents Sea. It's a lot of rough seas.
Do you have to land on designated seaplane airfields, airports? I don't know how to call it. Or can you land just wherever you want?
Wherever you want. Yeah, it's kind of same regulations as with bush flying in Norway, flying cubs and etc. So there is a Norwegian law called motorisert ferdsel utmark. It says something like the use of engines and noise abatement in the nature.
Alright.
regulations according
Okay.
to that. It's in common very not restricted in Norway. It's very open and free. But there are some areas you must avoid. That's like national parks, etc.
Yeah.
And some areas where there are wildlife depicted on the map. For example, like bird areas where they are giving birth. And also there are some places you need like just to call one of the guys living there, like a neighbor or a local
But
people.
generally speaking, you're not forced to only land on airports. You can
land.
base if no restrictions are applied in this particular area.
Yes.
You can also land on a field somehow
Yes.
with a cup roll.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what does that mean? If I'm a GI pilot in Europe and I'm flying to Norway, bush landing, I would contact one of the clubs nearby to see their recommendations. Where is it smart to go?
Okay.
Is it possible to go there this month? For example, I plan to go to a bush place up in Finnmark this autumn. And then I realized the day before when I talked with the local guy up there that no, that airfield is not possible to use.
Okay.
Because some people had been doing some drag racing on the field, on the
Alright.
gravel field,
Okay.
destroying the
Yeah,
runway with the big tracks. So you will probably crush your aircraft if you had landed there.
Yeah. Okay.
So going off fields in Norway, always contact the local ones. Usually there is one person owning that area, that land. So you need like a permission from that person to land there. That's first. And if there is like out in nowhere and you don't know who to contact or which air club is nearby, you can talk with the police actually.
All right. Okay.
So in those areas you would probably need like a permission from the local police in that area to go landing there.
Okay.
For example, I know some pilots have done that up in the north and contacted the police to just get the permission.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
But they are not surprised if you ask, I would like to land my plane there. So they actually know what's going on.
Yeah, they know what's
So,
going on
okay.
in some matter. Sometimes you just need to explain them a bit more.
Yeah. Because I believe
If you're landing, for example, in this area and blah blah blah.
Because I believe, like, if I would ask the police in Germany, they would have no clue what
Yeah.
I want from them. So
Exactly.
they would say, here, call the authorities, or I don't know.
So the intention there is for a tourist or a civilian local, if he sees a plane landing out in nowhere or on a road,
Yeah.
he will probably call the police and say, hey,
Okay.
there was a plane crashing or
Yeah, right. Just that they
conducting
know
emergency
that it's all
landing. Yeah.
normal, right?
And sometimes you just need to be sure that there are no restrictions there because it might be like a farming land or something.
Yeah.
So going landing offset in Norway or like bush landings, just talk to one of the clubs or one of us. We have some experience with some bush flying up here. And
Recommendations.
Yes, and we know other bush pilots who have either more experience and more experience, and they have a lot of recommendations and experience, and then have the phone numbers to all the people we need to call.
Okay.
And that AIP I talked about, we have like the AIP for the northern part of Norway with bush landing sites and all the contacts we need to call, and then you will have all the information you need.
All right.
So it's pretty neat.
Cool.
Nice. I think only to sum it up, like really in 1 minute. What would be the if we are planning the trip to Norway? There are probably multiple documents that we must review before flying here. Like I think one that you show already was the VFR guide to flying in Norway. Are there any other documents, like for example the AIP for the bush landing sites, or do you have any other recommendations for someone who's planning the trip to Norway and maybe they still don't have too much experience in like mountainous terrain and so on?
Yeah, what I would recommend is start with a VFR guide to Norway. It's quite detailed. Takes everything from A to Z. And then I would talk with a Norwegian club, like, hey, which airport should I go to first for entrance?
Oh, okay.
And where could I meet a friendly club with good fuel price, etc. And then a recommendation on the routing. In common, we usually use the coast. That's like the bad weather route. There's like low cloud layers, etc. You can always use the coast. It's a lot of airfields away. And then secondary, after you have read the VFR guide for Norway, just use IPPC and get to be familiar with the flight planning, digital flight planning. That also is stated in the VFR guide, like a how-to.
Right.
So a lot of help in that at that site, showing like the different guides, and there are different guides on the weather system of Norway. Furthermore, SkyDemon, I also used SkyDemon on the ForFlight in Norway, and it's quite good. It's quite detailed. I just double check the information on SkyDemon with the IPPC, see if it's just matching. And then I think the feedback, the notes and feedback at SkyDemon on the airports of Norway, they're quite accurate, actually.
Great. They
are, I haven't seen any like big discrepancies at this point. So be familiar with the guide, and then you talked about are there any like local rules in Norway not stated in the VFR guide, and etc. Well, it's the right rule, what we call the right-hand rule. In Norway, we drive at the right-hand side of the road, etc. The same if you're following a fjord and valley or mountains in Norway, then you push at the right side. Also, all the VFR points in Norway, all the reference points, you always try to cross just at the right side of it.
Okay.
So you are giving space for
upcoming traffic from another side.
On the different side.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yes. So, furthermore, then all the airports, the bigger airports in Norway, they will have a visual approach chart. I guess you guys also have this in Germany, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have the same.
This
Like the routes and...
Exactly. And what I've been noticing in Norway, some pilots, they think that these altitudes are like a common thing that you always have to do. But of course, this is just the chart altitude. That's what they expect you to do when you're not requesting anything else. But you can always request another altitude higher and a different entry.
Okay.
For example, I've been entering this airspace at this point here, just crossing the mountains and right into Tromsø, because that's a beautiful approach right there.
Yeah.
But it isn't stated here because it's not normal.
Yeah.
And then I just requested 4,500 feet inbound.
Okay.
So what I would recommend is to look into the charts, and of course, if there's a lot of traffic, then these routes are recommended, and the altitudes as well.
Sure.
Because these altitudes and routes will give way for IFR traffic flow into the airport at the same time. But if it's late in the evening or in the middle of the summer, and you listen to the frequency that's low traffic here at this time, you can always request something else, and always a higher altitude, because probably in Germany as well, these altitudes are pretty low. 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet, right? And in Norway, it's a lot of water, mountains. Sometimes you would like to be a bit higher.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Yeah,
great. Yeah, I think so. Today we got like really very comprehensive guidance to flying in the northern part, especially of the Norway, but also to the general to Norway. So you also gave us pretty many recommendations for the routes and for the airfields, and we also had opportunity to fly in the simulator. So many great things.
Totally. Thank you very much for your
Thank you so much for your time.
And
great. Thank you for coming here and checking out our club and our flying nature of Tromsø.
Thank you one more time for your experience, and we hope you also enjoyed it. Bye bye.
we learned a lot from Lars, and I really have to say that the GA community in Norway seems to be very friendly and welcoming. We are also very much looking forward to fly there by ourselves, since we have now some great contacts there already who are open to help us with our planning And I also hope that you could learn something from this video as well. So if you found this video helpful, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button not to miss any of our next videos, as we're actually planning to make more of this kind of informative content about general aviation, especially somewhere else in other countries when we are there in holidays or whatsoever. That being said, we wish you a great day and I hope really to see you again soon. Bye bye.